And we begin with the latest on the concerns over the Ebola virus. 2 Americans, both infected with the deadly virus, are returning home to the U.S. Dr. Kent Brantley and Nancy Reipel, both doing humanitarian aid work in West Africa when they contracted the disease. Now, we have just learned that Dr. Brantley arrived in Georgia just a short while ago and is now on his way to Emory University Hospital for treatment in a secure isolation unit. So far, the Ebola epidemic has infected over 1,300 people and has killed over 700. This is the first time the Ebola virus will be on U.S. soil, raising fears about an outbreak in this country. Senior correspondent Adam Housley has the very latest on the situation. Adam?
Yeah, and let's go back to that live look, in fact, of Atlanta, where the doctor is in transport, we're told, from Dobbins Air Force Base to Emory Hospital. You can see that our local affiliate, Fox affiliate, using the helicopter there, looking for the actual transportation as it goes towards Emory Hospital. Highly contagious, as you know, is this disease, but every single precaution is being taken as the American doctor affected with the Ebola virus is now back on the ground in the U.S., being treated at Atlanta's Emory University Hospital by Samaritan Purse, of course, has helped arrange this whole thing. They are the humanitarian group that the doctor was working for in West Africa. Dr. Kent Brantley was there. He was the one that contracted it along, as you mentioned, with Nancy Reipel. He was flown to Dobbins Air Force Base and then transported. About 15 miles this transport will take place from the airport to the hospital. The hospital is one of the most sophisticated hospital isolation units in the country, and it'll be the first time anyone infected with the disease is brought into the U.S., and officials here are confident that patients can be treated without putting the public in any danger.
The reason we are bringing these patients back to our facility is because we feel they deserve to have the highest level of care offered for their treatment.
Now, Emory University Hospital is just down the street, basically, from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's one of the just 4 such units in the entire country that can actually handle this type of a disease, this type of highly contagious disease. So only 4 locations, of course, one being just outside of Atlanta, here where Emory Hospital is located. Nancy Reipel, she also worked for Samaritan's Purse. She will be the next one brought over as they continue to try and treat these 2 Americans who were doing great work there for Samaritan's Purse. Reminder that over 1,300 people have been infected by this Ebola outbreak in Africa, and more than 700 have died. Here's again the live look as the doctor is being transported. Again, a 15-mile drive from Dobbins Air Force Base to Emory University Hospital. You can see the roadway has been cleared, and he's being kept, we're told, at least on the plane, and we have to assume this is the same thing in this ambulance, in a special tent. It's a tent that will basically keep all of the virus inside and help protect those who are also treating him. As you can see, that ambulance moving at a slow pace from Dobbins Air Force Base, now on the main highway there in Atlanta, as it goes towards the Emory University Hospital, again, just down the street from the Center for Disease Control. And there's been a lot of people talking about this. You know, Fox first broke this back the first part of this week when high-level discussions were taking place on whether to bring the 2 infected Americans back to the U.S. There was a lot of concern, but they are taking every precaution. And as you heard from Emory University, they believe this is the best way to keep control of this and at the same time try and save the lives of these 2 good Samaritans who are working for Samaritan's Purse. And as you can see, Uma, they're still making their way now over into, it looks like, the carpool lane, thankfully on a Saturday, so not a lot of traffic in Atlanta today as they head back towards the hospital. We're told at the most it's a 15-minute drive, less than that actually on most days. Uma?
Of course, a lot of questions about why they're being brought to the United States. Emory University Hospital has a very special unit there, and their folks are highly trained when it comes to infectious diseases.
Right. Absolutely, and they're the best in the world when it comes to this. And as you mentioned, there's only 4 facilities like this in the country. So when we were first hearing about this on Tuesday, that they were thinking about bringing the Americans back, our first question was, at least my first question to my sources was, okay, what does this mean? I mean, how many hospitals can do this? And I was told much less than 10. Now we know really only 4 can handle this. As the picture breaks up, our helicopter, as it moves over the Atlanta metro area, is going to have some breakup. That's normal. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is there were some issues actually flying these 2 patients. Well, now the first one, Dr. Kent, and then, of course, we have Reipel coming out next. There was a lot of issues actually in other African countries because they didn't want the plane to actually fly over them. There's a lot of worry about Ebola, and rightfully so. They didn't want the plane to land and even refuel. Now, we have been told the plane, again, has landed. We're told it stopped off in Bangor, Maine to get gas. At least that's what one of the reports was today. Of course, we'll have the final route when it's all said and done, because they can try to keep that as low-key as possible, not to worry people and give them any kind of fear, unnecessary fear. But you can see there the ambulance moving along with escorted through the Atlanta metro area, or around the Atlanta metro area, I should say, to Emory Hospital. And there's not a lot of traffic right now. I would have expected to see, honestly, Uma, a more police presence, but maybe they're further out from the picture since this has been zoomed in a bit. But you can see some unmarked cars there as well. As the helicopter follows this procession that's moving again from the airport at Dobbins Air Force Base in Marietta over to Atlanta to Emory Hospital.
What makes this story even more compelling is the fact that this doctor, selfless in his work, apparently asked that the experimental drug that was prepared to treat the Ebola virus when he contracted it, that he asked it to be given to the nurse, the other patient, the other U.S. Patient who was going to be coming to the United States, that he wanted her to have the experimental drug and asked that she take it first so that she could hopefully be helped in time.
Yeah, and also interesting, the jet that flew them from West Africa, eventually landing at Dobbins, was a Gulfstream private jet that was specially outfitted with this clear tint. We're hearing more about this clear tint. Basically, they help to contain contagious diseases. And because of that tinted situation, only one patient can come at a time. If there's any hope out of this, is that both the CDC as well as Samaritan's Purse say both patients are stable enough to make this trip. Obviously, if they were grave, maybe that trip wouldn't be made. So it's hopeful that they can somehow survive this disease, which again has claimed more than 700 lives so far in West Africa, excuse me, out of the 1,300 that officially have been diagnosed with it. So this evacuation is really what it is, the evacuation of 2 Americans that have been struck with the Ebola virus. And now here again, seeing the ambulance move. Again, interesting, it's a very short drive. The Saturday, of course, being a much easier time to traverse through the Georgia area, through the Atlanta area. And they drive, again, is less than 15 minutes, roughly 10 miles or so, we're told, from Dobbins to Emory Hospital.
Doctors in this country are, again, advising Americans not to panic, that this is a situation that they can keep under control. Yet the World Health Organization chief says that this latest Ebola outbreak is moving, in his words, too fast to control internationally. So it does raise big concerns about the implications.
Yeah, people may not realize also that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, even though they obviously are focused on the United States, goes around the world to help in a lot of other areas. They are on the ground in Africa trying to help contain this. And remind people, too, that to help people ease people's fears just a bit, this is not a disease that can be caught from coughing or being on a plane with somebody and sneezing. It's from bodily fluids that actually touch you. And generally, from what I've been told and all the research we've done and doctors that we've spoken to, generally it's passed along when you've touched a body that's towards the end of the virus, meaning they're about ready to die, because that's when you have more blood and that type of fluid. And that's a lot usually when the virus is passed along. Not always, but that's when the virus is passed along many times. And Ebola, of course, as we know, causes bleeding. So it's a very contagious disease, one we have to be very careful of course, but they say this is one that can be contained if done correctly, and that's why CDC is on the ground in Africa trying to help stop this. And you're seeing volunteer groups like Samaritan's Purse do work to try and ease people and help survivability, really.
Absolutely. Adam, stand by for just a moment, because I want to bring in Bruce Johnson, who is the president of SIM USA, and he apparently knows the patient, Nancy, very well, and he's been in touch with her family. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us. I know you pushed hard for their return to this country.
Absolutely, and thank you for that breaking news. It's great news that Dr. Brantley has landed and will be shortly in the hospital, and we look forward to that aircraft returning and bringing Nancy back as well.
Talk to me for a moment about your thoughts, knowing that Nancy will be coming soon and knowing that there is no cure for this virus, but certainly they will be treated at a very sophisticated facility to try to make them comfortable and see how this thing plays out with them.
I tell you, we really appreciate that this facility has been made available. Emory Hospital is one of the leading hospitals. They'll provide great care, and it really lifts our spirits. I also talked with Nancy's husband, David, just this morning. I was actually texting back and forth. He's encouraged by this, and both Dr. Brantley and Nancy were stable. Nancy's looking forward to the flight, and we're looking forward to her coming back. Both of them have been receiving great care, though, in Liberia through our SIM doctors caring for them.
How long had she been in Liberia?
She had been in Liberia 1 year working with SIM, but David and Nancy have been serving as missionaries in South America and in Africa for some 15 years.
And very committed, though, to their mission.
I'll tell you, they really are. Anyone that joins our mission with SIM and other missions, we talk about the realistic situation, that there are hardships. This is definitely a hardship, and yet they have a resilient spirit. They're trusting God for a good outcome, and we're praying to that end, and we're grateful for really the people of the U.S. and around the globe that are covering them with prayer.
Obviously, Franklin Graham, who's head of Samaritan's Purse, in close contact with the officials at Emory University as well. Have you been in touch with him as well?
We have not, but we are continuing to make arrangements, particularly that we'd like to encourage Nancy. It's wonderful. I think they have, I saw in the news report, they have glass. One of their procedures is to have contact with friends, family, encourage Nancy and Kent for their full recovery. And even though this is a deadly disease, and we need to be concerned, at the same time, the general public can be rest assured the kind of facilities like Emory, the survival rate just goes up dramatically because of the kind of care that they're receiving there and the kind of care that they received in Liberia.
You know, we understand that she remains in stable but serious condition, receiving that experimental drug that doctors are hoping will better address her condition. I find that story of how she received that drug so moving from the point of view that the doctor asked that she be given the drug first.
And in talking with the physicians, the situation is there were 4 dosages that were flown in, and between Dr. Kent and Nancy and their physicians, they all decided that Nancy would get 3 of the doses and Kent would get 1 dose.
And from what you're hearing, what impact does this experimental drug have on a situation like this when we know there is no known cure?
You know, we haven't seen what the results are yet. The good news is that for both of them, there's really been no deterioration in their condition. We don't know if that's the result of the drug, the prayers of God's people, or where they are in the cycle of this Ebola virus. It's very unpredictable in terms of one day up, one day down, but I'll tell you, our thumbs are up that they're doing well today and the last few days.
In case you're just joining us, you're taking a look right now at live pictures from Atlanta of the ambulance that is making its way to Emory University Hospital, where the doctor will be treated for Ebola there, and in a special isolated unit that with highly trained personnel who are very familiar with infectious diseases and will be keeping close watch. Talk to me for a moment, sir, about the impact this has had on the work that's being done in Africa right now by your organization.
Yeah, thank you. Matter of fact, this is another amazing story. A doctor flew in, arrived there yesterday. He was willing to go into this situation, and SIM has another doctor that will be leaving just shortly to be able to go into Monrovia. The situation is such that trained medical workers are desperately needed, and I've really been encouraged by the outpouring, particularly of the World Health Organization. I heard a report that $100 million to help get people in there is needed, as well as our doctor is going in to assess. We have Liberian staff and other staff that are working there. Our hospital is temporarily closed down, but we're looking forward to getting it restarted and really providing care for the Liberian people. So our work will continue there.
Your work is continuing, and you're encouraged by the fact that people are actually volunteering and saying they want to go down to Liberia and be part of the work that's happening right now, and they are not afraid of what they may encounter regarding Ebola.
Uma, that's a great point, that this disease is not something to be feared. It's something that through proper precautions can really be taken care of. And I so appreciate how the experts from CDC, Emory, and other outlets, even the President of the United States, have really come out in the proper way to really help us in the U.S. understand what this is. It definitely is a unique story for the first time that someone, two people with Ebola have been coming in to the country, but really this is nothing to fear. We have the kind of infrastructure of healthcare that will be provided, and I look forward to seeing them. I would have no problem going in to the hospital and being able to visit them.
It's a wonderful point indeed. Adam, let me bring you back into the discussion. Tell us more about the hospital, the facility there, where these two Americans will be receiving treatment.
Yeah, and as you can see, when we've been following the ambulance through our local affiliates helicopter, they're very close to the hospital, and they got off of I-85 North and now are on surface streets as they approach Emory University Hospital. Now, we're told that they have a special infectious disease unit away from the main hospital, so that actually separates themselves out. That's why this is one of 4 facilities in the country that is prepared to handle this type of infectious disease. And also what I found is interesting that in that specially built unit, they have their own lab. So no lab samples at all will ever have to go to the main hospital or anywhere else for that matter. They can stay and be contained specifically at that location. So that's where the doctor will be brought, as well as Nancy Wrightbold. She'll be brought there as well to this specially designed unit to handle this. Again, first time that Ebola has been brought into the U.S., but it's being taken to a location that's very well contained. Interesting to see as they drive through the Atlanta area. And I still have not yet seen police cars. I mean, we've seen some unmarked that might be along with them, but I was a little bit surprised, I think, that they didn't have at least some sort of police escort, you would think, going from Dobbins Air Force Base to the Emory hospital unit that will treat them. But at this point, Uma, we have not yet seen a police presence, unless that's an unmarked SUV behind the ambulance that's making its way. We're told it's very, very close to the hospital. Again, a 15-mile drive or so from Dobbins. And by my watch, they've been on the road for about almost 15 minutes. So it's almost exactly the point where they should be arriving at the hospital. And by knowing the Atlanta area a little bit, this seems like they're getting very close to where this location is. Again, I think it's interesting to note that Emory and the CDC are only just down the street from each other. The Center for Disease Control, and of course the CDC is highly involved in trying to contain this in West Africa.
Tell us again about the condition of the doctor at this point. What do we know in terms of his responsiveness and at what stage that this virus is spread?
Well, they're careful to give us obviously the full details. There was a report yesterday that he had gone into grave condition, but then we were told today before this flight, and it was confirmed once he landed, that the doctor was stable enough to make the trip. That was what we were told. And obviously stable enough to make that kind of flight shows that there's still some strength there. And while they don't go into direct depth of what he is facing, when it comes to his how far along is he, what's the likelihood of him surviving, and that kind of thing, it does tell you that he's strong enough to make that flight, and that's obviously very hopeful for family, friends, and all those who are praying and hoping that this doctor and Nancy Wrightbold, the lady who was working as a nurse there, survive this disease. At this point, 700 people have died. More than 700 have died this year that we know of, and more than 1,300 sickened, again, that we know of, because as we know, people move and sometimes don't know. This is going to be 2 to 3 week incubation period with this disease. And so that's one reason why the CDC and others are on the ground in West Africa trying to ensure that this doesn't spread, doesn't become a major or more of an outbreak than it already has become. Uma.
And again, that this facility was built in collaboration with the CDC, which makes this quite special, and only one of 4 centers that is set up to treat a situation like this.
Yeah, and it's also the one thing that this facility will be able to do. Obviously, it's from what we've been told, the most prepared facility in the country, along with 3 other ones that can handle this type of infectious disease. But if anything, if any place in the world can help these 2 patients survive by making them more comfortable and by trying every kind of treatment available, it is this facility. So if you're obviously a family or friend or someone who's praying for these 2 individuals, I mean, this is where you want them to go. At the same time, there obviously is a lot of concern from Americans. I mean, when we first reported this earlier this week that this might take place, that they might be brought back to the U.S. for the first time in the country's history, there were a lot of people that were questioning whether that was a good idea. And I think that after we've learned more information and you're seeing the precautions that have been taken so far and the containment that's being done, I mean, he's inside of basically a plastic tent, we're told, that will contain any of this stuff. And again, it's all about fluids. It's not something that goes out into the air. That is, those are things that should help ease people's fears, and hopefully this can be contained in West Africa at the same time. As we move towards the hospital, of course, we are expecting a press conference at some point from the CDC and the hospital once the doctor has arrived and been taken in and taken into the facility where he will be treated. We haven't yet been told exactly when we expect the plane to return with Nancy Wright-Bowl. Again, it's a private jet that's doing this flying.
Well, Adam, let me jump in here for just a moment
to be able to handle this.
Adam, we're learning that the plane has left to bring the other patient here to the United States.
Okay, good. So obviously the plane is going to head back to Africa and then bring her back. So it's going to be somewhat of a trip if you think, the layover time and having to stop and refuel along the way. So it'll be sometime, probably another day. Well, I got the flight to West Africa, I think is 15, 17 hours, something like that. The Gulf Stream is going to have to stop and get gas, you figure. So it's probably a 20-hour trip just to get there. And then the return flights as well, another roughly 20 hours. So it'll be a good day and a half or so before she returns back to Atlanta. And
as you can see there, the ambulance arriving at Emory University Hospital there and heading towards that special isolated unit where the doctor will be treated. Let me bring in Bruce Johnson again into our conversation. As you're watching these pictures of the ambulance coming into the hospital area, what's running through your mind, knowing that we're learning also that the plane has left for Africa to pick up Nancy?
I tell you, Uma, I've got goosebumps. It's so great to be with you because I'm getting this update. Excuse me.
You're very emotional. I'm sure this is so hard for you and something that touches all of our hearts.
Yeah, it's those are tears of joy. That Kent is here. Again, they were receiving great care by our SIM doctors on the scene there in Liberia. But there's something about having them come back and be with their loved ones. And great news that they got that plane refueled. I would imagine they'd need a new crew to get back on it, and boy, they turned that thing around. And if that's true that they took off again, that just gives me goosebumps. And yeah,
I know this is something that is a very emotional story, as you point out, for these individuals, for their loved ones, for their families, for people like you who have been very close to them and have worked alongside them. And we wish you all the best, and we wish them the best, of course, as they begin this new journey and this part of, taking part in the situation where they're going to be treated for this deadly virus.
Thank you so much, Uma, and it's been just great to be with you. I really appreciate the word that you're getting out to help our neighbors across the U.S. know that they can pray, they don't have to be fearful, and Emory CDC really is doing a great job. Really appreciate your help with this.
Oh, listen, we want to get the word out. Certainly this is a story that has drawn attention around the world, and a lot of people are very concerned, of course, about the implications for having the Ebola virus, technically here in the United States, even though the doctors are saying the chances for it spreading here is very, very slim. But certainly a situation where the World Health Organization is calling a major concern, because as we've been pointing out, more than 700 people have died, and it's a deadly virus that is spreading in a very big way. For our viewers there, you can see the police car there. The ambulance has stopped, and we expect that the doctor will be transported from that ambulance to the special facility in that isolation unit. And from what we're hearing and what we're reading is that these specially trained individuals will be having to wear special suits and masks and gloves, of course, if they're going to come in contact with the doctor in this situation. Adam?
Yeah, this reminder all our viewers, this is not an airborne virus, so it's all about touch and not touching any fluids. This is the actual facility, we're told, where obviously, at least the back area of the facility, we're on the Emory Hospital grounds. You saw the Emory Hospital Police Department, or Emory University Police Department that's there. In this facility, again, on the hospital grounds, but separate from the main hospital. That's a key point. And they have their own, as we mentioned a couple minutes ago, they have their own laboratory there, separate from the main hospital as well, so no samples will ever have to leave the location. So you're seeing precautions being taken now as they prepare to get the doctor into this facility. We're not sure if they're going to take him out here or if they're waiting for access to be allowed. But you're noticing the person they've got out of the ambulance, the driver, already in that very familiar hazmat suit up, which is basically head to toe. Everything is covered. When he's done, whether he touched the patient or not, they'll go through an area where they'll be decontaminated. It's a three-step process usually, where you go through and basically you're washed down with different agents, and by the end, then you can then undress and take off that suit. It's again a hazmat situation. That's the way these type of things are treated. So you can see him standing there, basically waiting for the next step. As we assume the doctor will be taken out at this location, because that's where the ambulance has stopped. But it is, you saw them pass by the main hospital a moment ago, and we're told again that this facility, especially built along with the CDC, is just it's nearby on the same basically hospital complex, but not in the main hospital. So that's what we're assuming they've stopped right now, Uma, as we await to see the next step where the doctor will be taken inside.
Do we know when this unit, this special isolated unit, was last used?
We don't. It's a relatively new unit. Again, when we first heard this might happen earlier this week, our sources, my sources that told me this was being considered, they said there at the time had much less than 10 facilities like this in the country, and now we know specifically really only 4 can handle this. We did expect one to be in Atlanta. Here we go. As you see the back door opening now of the ambulance. Another medical personnel or medical individual stepping out in full hazmat suit. You're noticing it. See, he has a breathing apparatus on as well. Looks like, Uma, where they'll take the doctor out. I'm curious to see if he is in this plastic tent that we've heard about, which helps contain everything. And they'll have to obviously decontaminate this entire ambulance as well. So maybe they're not getting him out here. I'm not sure. Obviously, we're speculating at this point to see what the next step is. We know the step is to bring him into the hospital.
But we clearly see people. We see these individuals in their hazmat suits, and they're obviously carrying something very carefully.
This could be. Yes, or this could be. I mean, is the patient able to walk? We don't know.
That's a good point.
We know he's obviously in a very serious condition. They're obviously helping each other over. So I'm not sure if one happens to be the patient or if this is they're carrying something. You know, obviously, we're speculation as we're watching this from our local affiliate WAGA, their helicopter above the Emory Hospital facility in Atlanta. I do find it interesting that you're seeing other folks nearby, not in hazmat suits, are allowed to be getting somewhat close to the ambulance. Again, not pass through the air, but I've been in much less serious situations where people were kept further away. So a little bit surprised that you're seeing some of the staff and security guards getting somewhat close to the ambulance at this point. But again, they're not have to worry about getting anything via air as we watch this whole process unfold in front of us. So that could have been the doctor walking in right there.
Well,
because it looks like the driver has gotten back into the ambulance.
Yeah, it certainly looked like one person was helping the other, trying to go through that entrance.
Right, and that would make sense that the doctor would be again, he was in a plastic tent initially on the plane, private Gulfstream jet. So it would make sense that he would be in some sort of a hazmat suit himself to keep everything contained as well. That could have been the doctor that was just walked in, Uma. Again, the ambulance driver has gotten back in. Looks like he's put his seatbelt on. So let's see if this ambulance drives away. The doctor may have just walked into the hospital. And if that's the case, if the doctor was able to walk into the hospital, that's a fantastic sign for those who are holding out hope that he can beat this highly contagious virus.
Absolutely. Dr. Mark Siegel is on the phone. Adam, stand by for just a moment. Doctor, good to have you on the show. Have you been watching these images as they have been unfolding?
Absolutely, and of course we can't confirm whether that's him or not. But I agree that if he's walking, that's an incredibly positive sign. And to answer a lot of public fears here, Dr. Fauci, the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, I interviewed him yesterday, and he said any risk here is infinitesimally small. And the head of the CDC told me that the containment they're using for Dr. Brantley is the same that they used for SARS in 2003, which was an airborne virus, much, much, much more difficult for people to catch Ebola.
Very interesting. And tell us a little bit more about what you know about this special facility at Emory.
Well, it's one of a kind almost. There's just a couple of them in the country, and really, for viewers, it would be people will be wearing like spacesuits. If anyone, and that's kind of out of the movies. Anyone that goes near the patient will be completely in a kind of a spacesuit with a mask, gloved, and they won't. There's no chance that they would come in direct contact with the secretions, which, as everyone knows by now, it's really the secretions that transmit this virus, be it stool or vomit or saliva, but which is less likely, or blood. So the chances are extremely slim that they would actually come in contact. They're using very, very strict decontamination precautions.
And we're now seeing, we're taking a look again at the video that we showed you just a few moments ago, which we believe could be the doctor arriving at the hospital there. This was video that we showed just a few moments ago, and being escorted, this individual is being escorted by another person. Adam, you have a question for the doctor?
Yeah, Doctor, we've heard various reports about his condition, and watching this video again that just happened moments ago, we're repeating it now on Fox, as you see two individuals walking in. One looks like he's a medical professional. The other one, as we watch it a second time, really does look like somebody who is sick, who's also in a hazmat suit. Doctor, you obviously know and done a lot of work on this. The fact that he walks in, you said it a moment ago, is a hugely positive sign. But Ebola, I would assume, because it attacks internally, if he was walking, that means he's made some great progress.
There's no question about that, Adam, because the way Ebola works is it deactivates the immune system. You don't respond to it, and you end up with total body organ failure, liver and kidneys shut down. I mean, that's the main issue, and for him to be able to walk, it would almost be that he must already be in a mode of recovery. The other issue here is that I'm aware through my sources and through Dr. Fauci at the NIH that they're considering using some antibody treatments here that are useful against Ebola. And another reason that we may benefit from him being here, I know there's a lot of fear and concern, obviously, but perhaps physicians can learn something from actually treating him here that could be useful in other cases if they appear.
Doctor, thank you very much for your insights. We really appreciate it. I know you're going to be keeping a close watch on the developments throughout this afternoon. Also, we've learned, of course, that the plane is on its way to pick up the other patient who will be coming to the United States, Nancy Wright-Bull. She's going to be arriving hopefully within a day or so. Adam, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on all of this. We're going to watch this throughout the day, and we ask you to keep it here on Fox for any late-breaking developments on this story.